Hello Parapeeps and everyone watching, welcome to tonight's show. Welcome to the Now Debate. As always, I am Jared Walters and I am joined with Richard Oliver, my partner in crime. And tonight we have the absolute delight and pleasure of welcoming back to the show Jesse An Nichols George. Jesse, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Jared. It's just trying to kind of catch my breath in the middle of everything that's been going on and what's been happening in our world. But yeah, I'm hanging in there, doing well.
Sorry, I normally refer to you as Anne, but for some reason my brain went on. I think my brain's gone on vacation a little bit lately. Richard, how about you?
Yes, I am. I'm okay. I am okay. It's been one of them days, but I'm good. I'm in it to win it.
It to win it. And if you guys are listening on the chat, please do let us know. Let us know if you can hear us okay, and let us know how you are and how you're feeling with everything going on. So, let's do updates first. So, any updates from anyone? And do you have any updates or things you'd like to share before we get into the meat of tonight's show, which is the code forecast for 2021?
I will just say, don't worry about calling me Jesse. She must be channeling through, because it was 2 days ago, I think it was, somebody else was calling me that too. So obviously her energy is present right now and participating in things.
Well,
we did. Did you say we're doing the codes for 2021?
Yes.
We're doing the 2021 codes today.
Wait a minute. Where's my sage? Right. Right. I'm good. Right. I can't make it. Oh, I wasn't prepared for that. Right, I'm ready. Good now. I think I'm cleansed. Right.
Oh wow!
I'm gonna smoke this sage now. Right, come on.
Well, I just want to make sure that we are live here and everything is going according to plan. I'm just going to check on the old YouTube side of things very, very briefly. And so what I thought that I would do is go back through some of the things that you predicted for November, like you did, like we did last month, and look at a lot of the things that you've said that have come to pass. So if you just bear with me a second, is that okay if we go through that and sort of just take a little bit of a trip down sort of memory lane with regards to that, and talk about sort of where we are, so we can kind of understand a little bit more of where we're going. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that would be great.
Fantastic. I'm just trying to find the stream on YouTube now. Just a minute. If you are in the chat, guys, and you are listening, can you please let us know that you can hear us, just so that we know that the sound is coming through well and you can hear us without any sort of interruption and that sort of thing. I can see that the video seems to be going okay, but as far as I'm aware, we are live. We are indeed live. So yeah, going back to some of the things that you said for November, and I want to touch on a couple of things that you actually said for December, because all these things are starting to come into light. Now, the first thing that these predictions were done originally, I think it was on the 26th of August, it was towards late August of 2020. And you took us from the end of August to September, all the way through to the end of the year, doing those predictions.
What's really interesting, I'm sorry to cut in there for a
No?
moment, Jared, that people should know is these pieces of information that you're getting, that I've been giving out during the show, I actually wrote a year prior to that. So it's kind of interesting once you put that together and you see it manifesting, a year later, when you have no idea of what the circumstances were going to be along the way.
And if you guys want a preemptive look at that, you can take a look at Jesse An Nichols George book, which is the Code Journey 2021. I was so hoping to have my copy by today, and unfortunately things haven't turned out quite as I wanted them to. But I am going to be getting a copy for Christmas. But literally, you can take a look at. Is the one for 2020 still free? Can I ask, Anne?
Yeah, any previous years are free on the ebook version through Smashwords only, because that's the only place I can make it totally free.
Okay.
But yeah, the previous years are available for free on Smashwords, so people can go in and check that out. And then this is what the 2021 book looks like. Hopefully that's going to show up okay. Yeah. Okay. And so
it's a chunky
it's really
old book.
Great. I just feel like I love doing that, because it feels like a great way for people to explore something. I mean, if you want to buy something, you should have a chance to experience it a little bit. And I think that doing that really kind of helps give people an idea of what they're going to get for their money, what they're, getting into.
Yeah, absolutely.
They can read some of the background of things and see if it feels like a fit for them. And so it's kind of like a no-risk opportunity to try things out. And some people like to go back to the previous years anyways and just take a look and go, oh, yeah, at this time that was going on, or this was going on. And
yeah, absolutely.
I can, really see, and they can see how it kind of came together in there too.
Well, going into this in November, because this is interesting, because a lot of the things I wanted to comment on here, a lot of the time we'll go into the what we're seeing in the newspapers, the media, and the political realms, as a lot of sort of our discussions sort of tend to fall into when it comes to the codes and that sort of thing. But a lot of this actually came into the personal realm this month, and a lot of what you said, I can actually, and I say this each month, but this month totally has kind of led me to a bit of a personal sort of catharsis, really, because you said about November 3rd and around about the time of the election, a lot of completion energy was coming in. And I had that from Spirit, and I've said that in other videos. There's a lot of completion energy. There's a lot of that energy was coming down to the wire. And a lot of things that were going to happen out of the election were going to spawn people questioning questioning the narrative and questioning what was happening. Now, you did say that it was more favouring a Trump victory, but as we have come to know now, there is a lot of doubt surrounding the official result of this election, and this is kind of factoring to a lot of the stuff that I kind of want to highlight here, because it has been, I've looked at elections and I've studied elections for years, right? I kind of got a morbid fascination with them. And I have never seen an election quite like this one, where literally I was told, watching it on the mainstream news at 5 o'clock in the morning, I may as well go to bed, because basically these 5 key states have gone home for the evening and no counting was going to carry on until the next day. I've never seen that in any election that I've watched. And there's a lot of questions. Now, regardless of which side you support on this, whether it's Trump or Biden or whatever, I think that the main fact it has brought up is the fact it's brought in to question the integrity of the system. You said there's going to be a lot of introspection and soul searching this month, and I think a lot of us have been feeling that. And I've noticed that when I'm talking to people about the lockdowns, I'm talking to people about, you know, what they're seeing in the media, what they're believing. A lot of people at the moment now are coming to that point where they're saying they've had enough and they don't know what's next. And they're going back to things like their old jobs and going back to the way life used to be. And they're feeling normal isn't quite as normal as they thought it was anymore. And there's a lot of questioning, I think, going on in people's mind. You said it wasn't a good time for business. Well, the first articles I will come to as an outward reminder of this is the UK went into a full lockdown for basically the entirety of November. A negative outlook for businesses. You've seen a lot of sort of negative impacts on businesses due to to a lot. I don't think it was just. I don't think it was just the lockdowns in the UK, but you know, in different areas around the world as well, as I'm going to come into very quickly here. You said about another interesting point I picked out when you said about negative outlooks for business is a huge 5G announcement rollout in the US. But what I also found is quite interesting is the Disney Plus streaming service. And I believe some of the other streaming services are seeing resignations and reshuffles in upper management, especially in, as I said, I'll put the link in the description below for this, but there's an article I've got in front of me here which talks about Disney Plus and there being a major reshuffle there. You also talked about a breakdown of jobs for the boys. Well, we've seen the resignation of Dominic Cummings as a Prime Minister in the UK's chief aide. Also seen the resignation of his chief of staff. You also said about we'll be seeing more of the people who are true leaders. We'll be seeing the men from the boys. Well, a lot of people give their backing to the Chancellor in the UK and the Home Secretary, given the immigration and the furlough schemes and that sort of thing. A lot of this is UK centric. Don't forget that Boris Johnson also had to self-isolate and disappear for 2 weeks. And I'm not even getting into America yet. You said about in the last week we got truth coming out of mainstream media. Now that the mainstream media would be in a position where they would have to acknowledge certain truths. Well, you're seeing that with the election, and you're also seeing that with the announcement today in the UK that the UK is going to be the first country in Europe, and I'm not sure if it's the world, to actually have a sustained rollout of the Pfizer coronavirus vaccine, which is going to cause a lot of people to question a lot of things and create upheaval. But it has had to be announced in the House of the Parliament that I am here today that they will not at this point be made mandatory. Neither will the testing that's being rolled out around the country. Basically, there's also been a lot of backlash in the UK Parliament, crumbling of corruption. Trump has pardoned Michael Flynn, and you're seeing allegations come out of bribery and backlash with regards to that. So a lot of this, what you said about the breakdown of structures, breakdowns of jobs for the boys. I don't know. I've just put a link to one of the articles and put Trump fires, because I have absolutely no idea how many people he's fired by now. I think it's, to quote the man, it's been a lot. Maybe you can sort of talk me through a little bit of that. There's also been resignations in Europe and European Union. I believe there was an MEP that was forced to step down today. There's been resignations over the Danish handling of the mink COVID, the COVID found now in minks, that has led to a mass culling in Denmark. We're also seeing government resignations in Turkey and government assassinations, I believe, in Iran with regards to the nuclear program or prospect. Having to face harsh reality, fear and threats before they go under, a massive push on vaccines and lockdowns, making people the victim. And I think you've pretty much summed up what a lot of us are going through. And I believe, and I had a conversation on the weekend with my partner, and she said, you've got to start listening to people more, because when you start listening to what they're saying, you can actually see that they've got the answers, and you can prod the answers from them. And I've noticed that in my conversations lately, I'm starting to listen to people more, and I'm starting to think, okay, of the other side of it more. If, for example, shops start turning around and go, well, you can't go to Tesco's unless you can prove you've had the vaccine, does that mean people will start investing more in local produce? Does that mean that people will innovate around this situation? So there's a kind of a lot going on where you can start to see the hope, because I think it's now reaching past the point of no return. And I found there's one extra thing I was going to say that I've been thinking of saying is, we've all been thinking about the shock. When is this big shock going to come? And the one thing I realised with shock is you don't realise you're in shock until you've been in shock for a little while. And I think it's not the seeing that, oh, the big shock is coming. It's the fact that we're realising that we're in shock. And we're looking, and I think this factors into a lot of why the UFOs and things are coming out. And we're seeing a lot more stuff about the sort of paranormal and that element of it as well, is because people's attention is starting to go and look elsewhere. As much as there's distraction being put out in the mainstream to stop people from reacting to certain things, there's also a certain amount of distraction that we crave, because we can't deal with the intensity. We actually need distraction to a certain degree so we can process all this stuff. And I think what we're starting to see, and I think it's what we need to see, if we look at everything that's happened this year, it's been the perfect storm. And I'm just giving you my viewpoints, and I'll throw this out into the floor. But my viewpoint is it's created this perfect storm. And I think what we will start seeing, as much as this is pushed now, is maybe people start thinking, hang on, what's going on here? And starting to maybe ask a few questions. We're going to start maybe seeing some people put their head above the water and have a look around and go, okay, then, and maybe, hopefully, there'll be enough people there that can hold their hand out enough to help people to the common ground, to the bit in the middle, the bit that they can get their head around and understand. Because I don't know about anyone else on this panel here, but I've certainly struggled to get my head around half the things that we've seen this year. The other half, I'm sure, are still to come, and we're probably not even aware of it yet. So I'm going to throw the floor open to you guys. That was the rundown for things that matched up to everything you said about November. And I just thought I'd throw it out to you guys.
Great rundown on things, by the way, Jared. Thank you so much for that. I do like to remind people that even though we've talked about a lot of world event things on this show in particular, that the Code Journey is really a personal journey in there. And so there's always these macrocosms. It's going to hit on what is happening both in our personal life and also what's happening in the world around us. And really a great point that you brought up about the shock, because I think a lot of people have been living in this shock for most of 2020. They're tired of it, and we've got a ways to go in this journey still of what we're in, and the shifts and the changes and the transformations that are going down and that are going on in our world. And I'm glad you brought that up, because so many people are always asking, well, why can't they just go in, make all of these arrests if they know, who the people are? Why can't they just go in and put it all out on the table and, do it all? Well, there's certain things involved that, of course, you don't tell your enemies or you don't tell the bad guys that you're going to do a sting on them, for one. You have to, catch them in the act, so to say. And then two, though, beyond that is what you're touching on, and that is what people can handle. And there probably is going to be some bigger booms, if you want to say that, coming down the line that is going to be intense for people. But while we intellectually think, oh, that's a nice concept to just have it all on the table, get it out, get it over with, it's not quite as simple as that, because it would overwhelm the psyche of most people. And what is going to start rolling out, I think, especially as we look at 2021, that it for a lot of people, it will overwhelm the psyche. It is going to start to push them over that limit and over the edge. And it's not necessarily going to be the prettiest year. Of course, people say, well, 2020 wasn't the prettiest year either. And we'll get more into what's going on in 2021 in a moment here. But when you look at these things, that we have to be very, very careful. And I think this is one of the things that Trump has tried to put out there, again, whether you like him or not. I mean, you got to pace some of this stuff out. You gotta do it in little pieces so that it can be processed, so that it can be absorbed, because otherwise you can create just so much resistance that people shut down and they don't take anything in and they don't look at what's happening. You can also just send people right over the edge who are really sensitive. So you have a lot of things that you have to consider, just like when you do a shutdown in a country. You have to consider a lot of things. Is it really going to be as beneficial as you like? Because if you have more deaths, for example, from suicides or abuse or addictions or things like that, than you have from a virus, for example, then those shutdowns aren't worth it. You're creating more trauma and drama and everything. So I'm really glad you brought that point up, because we do have to be careful, and we do have to make sure, and in the codes in December, I know we've talked about it, we got to start finding our balance. We've got to start walking away, giving ourselves the processing time, giving ourselves the time to decompress and to move through it, and to consider the things that we need to consider for ourselves and in our own lives. Even if you take some of these key players out of the picture, you got to stop and just be able to honor yourself a bit, honestly.
And Richard, is there anything, because I got a counterpoint here, is there anything you want to say first of all before I make that counterpoint?
Do you know what? Not really. I mean, the thing is, corruption is across the board, right? So to actually make these arrests and everything, you've got to find someone that's not actually corrupt. And I think in the systems we've created, I think that's a difficulty in its own, right? Because as I've said on this channel many times, at my level, in the work I've done just in little old South Wales, there's corruption, terrible corruption. And it's become so ingrained into the system that I think I know it sounds sad, but I don't think there's any good guys left. I genuinely, in my heart, I think the good guys are so outnumbered, they're so surrounded that they're struggling like everyone else is at the minute. And yeah, I think shock, but I mean, if we look at the way the virus came about, and it was sort of like, oh, there's a virus in China, next thing you know, it's in your local village, and people are dying, without real evidence, and it's just caught up. Nobody's looking at like Wuhan, where they were dragging out their dead and they were sending trucks down the road, firing this spray over the streets. What happened to that news? How was that possible if it's not possible any other place on earth? You've got Taiwan on the border to Wuhan. They had 7 dead. They had 460 cases. They didn't have no hard lockdowns. They didn't go through none of the draconian measures we've gone through, and coronavirus is gone. And I think it's just people. I think obviously time is a factor, because there's not many of us that have got the time to go and look at something, an alternative. And it's just a massive manipulation. The whole thing. I mean, this thing with Trump is a massive manipulation. QAnon, massive manipulation. Everything else is going on. It's all controlled by the same people. They control our information. And, and if they control information, they're going to brainwash you. They're going to brainwash you. And I think to get past that point is going to take it's going to take a lot of people. It's going to take a lot. So
I don't think it's something. Well, you've just basically made the point that I was going to make. Is I don't think it's going to be televised. I don't think there's going to be any sort of like televised victory or some sort of march that ends this really in the right kind of way. This is going to take people, each of us, asking the question: how are we going to live our lives? What are we going to accept? What choices are we going to make individually and collectively? And having those conversations and having those discussions and putting them into action, because at the moment, like you said, there is no good guys left, and therefore there's an opportunity for those of us who can to become the good guys in one way, shape or form. And I think that this is the point where this is the point of no return. This is as we've discussed between me and you, Rich, this is like the Red Sea moment. We need, we are at that Red Sea moment now where we are feeling collectively doomed. And, I was sitting there watching Boris Johnson talk about his biological jiu-jitsu or whatever else he wants to talk about. And I was sitting there thinking, well, actually, if you're listening to what people are not saying, and I was listening to the mainstream media and they were talking about there's going to be, there's a YouGov poll of 1 in 5 people say that they are uncertain and wouldn't take the vaccine if it wasn't for more information. I could say that the probably the reality is a little bit more than that, because mainstream media will downplay these things. But you could see even they had a slight concern with what they were reporting. You could hear it in their voice. You could kind of sort of feel that atmosphere there. Is you've got people. I think it was a lady circling a video of a lady circling on the internet a couple of days ago talking about when they were thinking of making the vaccines mandatory. Speaking out, and she sort of worked on this morning. So you are seeing resistance across the board, not just in the sort of working classes or middle classes, but you're seeing it on all sides of it. Like every time there's a protest now in the mainstream media go, there was so many arrests, etc. Literally within minutes, people are seeing how brutal those protests may have got, or the information is getting there, and it's getting there in so many ways that people are now starting to think more about where they're getting information from. And you're always going to get those ones who are entrenched in mainstream media. But even just like if you have one person per family that's maybe doing a little bit of research, it's enough. It's enough to spark that turnaround. But I suppose there's reasons to be hopeful. There's reasons to be doubtful. But the only thing that you can do is try and be true to yourself. Be true to who you are, and be true to what you believe. And I think that's what we've tried to do on this channel. That's what we've tried to do in our lives. So we are at a tipping point. I think we are at a tipping point, and I just made some notes about what you said for December, just to sort of go back on the point you made, Anne. You said there's a lot of... You'll see and tomorrow I'll put the December video up, because I've already mapped out the other side, the articles and everything. So just got to put it together, so that should be done tomorrow. But just to paraphrase some of the things you said for December, you said, as we go into December, there'll be a lot of uncertainty. What's next? There'll be positive stress. There'll be signs of success, but signs of also failure. We need to start learning from our mistakes. Windfalls in true compassion. Positive booms. We've got a lot of things coming up on this channel in the next couple of months that are going to be amazing stories, and I'm personally both nervous and excited at some of the people we've got coming up on this channel, because I want to give people good information, and I want it to be good, and I want people to feel good about it like I do. But also that is a bit of a responsibility as well, because the more and more people discover this work that we're doing, the more our word carries some weight. Strong divine presence in December. Self-sufficiency. Stand up to the bullies. Stand up for the underdog. Focus on issues focus on issues and solutions that look out for the well-being of people. Big accomplishments, celebrations. So you do, sort of leading us into 2021, give us some hope that things are going to change. And everything that you mentioned about the vaccines being pushed. Well, the first vaccines in the UK are being rolled out next week. So we are going to see this conundrum.
I'm a Welsh.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that I think part of what we forget too is sometimes we have these huge successes to celebrate, but we get so wrapped up in the trauma, the drama, the upheaval aspects that we forget to stop and celebrate the successes that are happening. And so I think that that's always an important thing. I think that we do have about a 2-week or so break in here, and then we have shifts and changes and things that start happening around the middle of the month, and then particularly at the last week of the month. And so I encourage people to catch this little breath of air in here, even if you're kind of sitting on this aspect of uncertainty. And, when we're in uncertainty, it's actually not a bad thing. It's something that we're not taught how to be comfortable with. But in uncertainty, there's so much potential. And I think that the more, what happens is the more people that are speaking up, the more people that are speaking out, the more people that are saying, yeah, this doesn't look right to me. There's something not right in this situation. I can't support this. I've got to stand in the truth of things, whatever, their position is. And I think the more people do that, then the harder it is for the corruption to remain hidden. The harder it is to not be seen, and the more drastic measures they have to take to try to obtain control. And the more drastic the measures become, the more resistance that's going to come out. So as much as it can be draining and it can be tiring to go through all of this, I actually have a little group of friends that it's like we kind of celebrate through Messenger a lot of times when things are happening, because even though it's chaotic, we realize the blessings that are coming out of it. We realize what is coming to the surface, what's being released. And this is important. We don't really want to keep the lies and the corruption undercover, because that's where it can do the most amount of damage to us. We want it out in the open where we can see it, where we have a chance to say, oh, heck no, we're not going to put up with mandatory vaccines. And this has been turned over in a couple of other places. And it's going to get interesting, I think, where they're trying to roll the vaccines out right now. And then you have countries that basically have eradicated the virus. So, can they really warrant a vaccine in that type of situation, for example? Australia is one of those, like around the Melbourne area, they've gone 4 weeks without a case out there. So we see these things, but we also have to keep in mind that this is not a short, hey, okay, I had a bad week and it's gone now, energy pattern that we're in. This is a 5-year, basically a 5-year energy pattern that is coming into play. And so, we're just finishing year 1 of that 5-year pattern. And we're getting ready to head into year 2. Now, I do believe that most likely 2020 and 2021 are the most intense probably of this 5-year cycle, because I think that we will, with each step that comes through, each thing that's unfolded, like what they're having unfold in the elections, people are realizing, oh my gosh, this is not just about America, this is about the world. The ties are all over the world with this type of corruption that's going on, this type of control. And I think that, Americans maybe more so because just my experience, I won't say all of them, but just my experience in general, Americans don't tend to stay up on what's happening in their government the way people from other countries do. Like most of the people in the UK are very much on top of what's happening in their government. My friends over in Denmark are very much on top of what's happening in the government. My friends who were Australians and Africans, and they were very much up on what was happening in their government. So, America just kind of sits back and lets the media, for example, feed them the news, and they get a little lazy with things in general. Again, not saying everybody, because there's a lot of great people out there trying to bring the truth out, trying to do the digs these days. But, I have to say to people, we're going to go in and out of waves here for a few years. And the key with this, and the key that I've learned in working with the codes, is that it's all about riding these waves. Sometimes you're going to get that big, heavy, beastie wave in there, and you need to know how to surf it, and you need to be able to ride it when it gets pretty gnarly out there in that wave. And then there's times where it's going to be calm, and you can just lay on the board and enjoy the ocean and things like that. So this is the same way all currents work. There's times they're going to magnify, and it's going to take a lot of our energy, and then there's times to sit back. And that's what the code journey kind of offers us. Okay, this is a time where people are going to get fired up a little bit more, and this is a time where it's going to be a little bit quieter. And I think when we know that, we can rest into the uncertainty a little bit easier. We can handle some of these things a little bit easier. And I think that, again, the piece to remember with uncertainty, because that is a thing that a lot of people are feeling right now, because they rely on their eyes more than their heart. Mm-hmm. And, uncertainty holds the potential. That means we have opportunity. It means that we have possibilities at hand. And it's really kind of that call to say, what direction do you want to take things? I mean, we all feel powerless, but for example, in our own lives, we could all focus on kindness with one another, and we can start to shift it. What people get used to is these patterns. These patterns get programmed. They don't want to be left out in things. And so they start following the narrative, or they start following what everybody else is doing instead of saying, yeah, this doesn't feel right to me. I don't think I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. And so just like the I don't know if I want to say negative, but the challenging stuff has been programmed into us, we can program kindness in. We can program other things in. And, we have a lot more power in us than we realize. We're trained to be taught that we have no power. We're trained to be taught that we can't make a difference, but in reality we can. And their illusion is that they are far more powerful, because we see it, diversed out through all of these networks and organizations. And yeah, it's a vast network, but that doesn't mean that everybody in those organizations are totally corrupt. I think there are some people that really want to bring the good stuff out. And this is part of the shifts and the changes that we're seeing. And I think part of my hope is, because I can see where the codes are going, I actually can see that we're going to end up probably in a pretty decent space. No, our world's not going to be the same as it was even a year or 2 years ago, but we can make the changes positive. We can take what the cards are that we've been dealt, and we can turn it into something better. We can toss out the stuff that isn't working. We can, draw some new cards. We can get creative with things. And I think that's my big key as we start to move into this, because 2021 is only the second year, and it's going to have some challenges with it, and we're going to have some waves, and we're going to have some challenges during the year that particularly like in summer when people are normally getting outside and they're normally enjoying the weather. That's a time that we could be seeing some sort of restrictions. But, we don't have to be in the victim mode in these restrictions or these temporary challenging spaces. We can speak up. We can start to become proactive. We can work from our own life. And the more that we do that, the more we can influence the whole.
Well, this channel is a symbol, at least for me personally. I don't know if I speak for you, Rich, but for me, this channel has been a way of me thriving under what has been a very difficult year personally. And even just the journey that I've taken with making these videos. Having to go through all those different conversations that we've been through throughout this year, finding sort of my own voice, my own authenticity, doing these now debates, connecting with different people, putting out the information that we're getting from the Council of 12. I could actually say in some ways this year I have thrived. I have definitely thrived. And I take a lot of personal, solace from that. I take a lot of personal gratitude from that then, I suppose. Are you with us, guys?
Yep.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
And what about you, Rich?
No, I got to be honest at the beginning, because obviously we had that video taken down. I felt like the censorship was gonna push me over the top, to be honest, because the censorship has been absolutely insane. Because, you can't say anything against the World Health Organization, which is a privately funded company, and it did get me a bit. I thought, oh my God, if I don't like not being free to say what I want to say, and I have my beliefs and I'd like to say them, and whether they're wrong or right. And but the channel, the channel itself, and the people that come on here and view us, and the connections we made, like yourself, Anne, has just been that's been changing. That has given me hope and it's spurred me on. But the fact that it feels like you're not free to say how you feel, even though we do. We have said some stuff on this channel. I'm not going to say we haven't, but it's I know what you mean by that, Jazz. It's kept us. It's given us focus and purpose.
Yes.
I just hope people just start to see it for what it is. I keep having these, it's like with Trump, and they put in all this hate out about him, and they put in out, but the same for Biden. And, I look at things objectively. I've been doing this a very long time, the paranormal, and giving people readings and reading people and talking to people from all different backgrounds when other people will shun from them. And I don't. I go and embrace whatever it is they are, whatever life they've been through. And I think I see what I see, and I've seen with Trump, and he have said some crazy things, right? Don't get me wrong. He said some things like building a wall around Mexico, and we've talked about this. And I was like, when I saw that, I was like, oh, right, that doesn't seem right. You could have spent all that money on trying to make the situation better for the people involved, because it's not all full of bad people in Mexico. So, there's got to be people in there who feel as trapped as we do in this situation. So, I mean, but on face value, yeah, I'm not going to, the things he's said and the way he treats the media and the things he's done and the actions he's taken have made me go, well, that's what I've been looking for. We had it in this country with Theresa May. She was the head of the paedophile investigation squad for 4 years. Nobody was brought to justice. Next thing you know, she's prime minister, right? It's like she wasn't even in the running for it. And I don't know. I struggle with how people don't make the connections. I think with this type of field, obviously yourself, Jess, you make connections quite quickly, right? Because you're used to it. You're used to investigating something, right? So if something is as plain as the nose on your face, but yet the majority of people are going, I don't know, like, no, I can't see that. It gets frustrating. It gets a bit frustrating. And I'm struggling at the moment. It's like this vaccine. I'm struggling to see how people don't see it's nothing to do with the virus. It's all about money. It's got nothing to do with the virus. Nothing. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's 60% chance, and they reckon you're going to have one every year. It is just about the whole coronavirus thing. I'm sorry if I'm wrong and people don't agree with it. It's all about money. I've said it from the beginning. I'm never going to change my view on it, because the more I go on, the more it strengthens my view. But I don't know. I mean, I do on this channel, we did it the other night, we did a Q&A. And people could have asked us anything, right? They could have asked us, have we seen famous people? Have we done this? Have we done that? And it was COVID. That's all that came up, right? And the whole conversation went COVID. And I was like, oh, but because it's you're bombarded with it.
I love. Go ahead.
No, you're just bombarded with it.
But the fact people were asking questions of it and wanted the conversation, I think, was encouraging in itself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that's what I mean. The fact that they wanted to speak about it meant that they were thinking there's something wrong.
Yeah.
But it's just like it's like somebody putting continuous amount of books on you, and it gets heavier and heavier and heavier until the end. You go, all right, I can't take them more. And that's I'm starting to see that pattern in people. I'm starting to see people going, oh well, yeah, but you got to have it, and there's people being forced now. If they don't go, we've just had some information today from apparently that they just every aspect. If you don't work, you're going to be forced to have the vaccine if you want money. If you do work, you're going to be forced to have a vaccine to stay in your job. And people, I just don't see how can't people just say that's just unacceptable. That is just so utterly morally against our human rights. And you've got people going, well, I'm going to have one, see. It's just, I'm seeing that pattern, and I'm stuck in that loop, and I'm struggling with it at the minute. I am.
Well, and we have to kind of look at ourselves. We're kind of like the people that are bringing the truth out are a lot like the people that used to say, hey, we can, travel in space. And everybody thought, oh, there's no way we're traveling. There's no way that's true. There's no way that's going to, and of course we travel in space, whether you talk an airplane or a jet going to, another constellation or whatever further out. But, when we get into these aspects, and part of how things just naturally work in the universe is that if we refuse to see the truth, it's going to get bigger, badder, and more in our face until we're willing to accept it. And you're always going to have some people, for example, they're going to be standing in front of the elephant and they're going to say, I can't see the elephant, or I don't believe that's an elephant in front of me. And of course, if you want to get super esoteric, you can say, well, that's true because everything's an illusion, right? But I mean, when you get into this period, and Jared, you mentioned it earlier, this 5-year period that we are in right now with the codes, it is literally the fate of humanity. And yes. I don't know how I can stress that any other way, but it is the fate of humanity. And It's not just one piece. It's not just the vaccines. It's not just a virus. And I think there are more people waking up. They are starting to ask questions, which I think is a great thing, because they're realizing, okay, look, I was okay with a lockdown for 2 months or something. We get rid of this thing. But now you're telling me X amount of months later, it's still happening. It's still going. And, I just believe in choice, because choice is aligned with the soul. Mm-hmm. Choice is aligned with the truth, and choice is aligned with divine flow of energy. Mm-hmm. Once you take choice away, you start removing connection to the soul. Mm-hmm. This is where I have problems with things like the vaccines and things that are coming up. If somebody wants to get them, that's their choice. But what I want is choice. The same thing is with masks. People should have a choice. It shouldn't be mandated. It shouldn't be required, things like that. And especially when we start weighing out the other circumstances and all the other pieces involved, which we've talked about enough. But I think that really one of the things we're going to see in 2021 is we are going to be questioning a lot more. More people are going to be questioning, because it's going to get down to, who am I? What are my experiences here? What is the true essence of myself? Is it just this human existence? Is it something more than this existence? We're going to get down to, especially as these power structures crumble, and they are going to crumble in 2021. Actually, there's about a four-year period. This, a lot of the corruption actually started coming up around 2008, which is very interesting if we think of some of the people who came into office in 2008 around different places. And of course, that was more of that thirst for power. And now we're seeing these organizations, these corporations, governments, big pharma, they're all starting to crash down. And that's going to continue through 2024. So when we start to look at this, there's a lot of competition for power that's going on right now, and will continue to go on until about the end of 2024, 2025, right in there. And that's the thing, is that corruption gets thirstier and greedier and hungrier for power. And that just keeps perpetuating. So no matter how much they get, they want more and more and more. So I do see these structures are going to continue to crumble. We're going to continue to deal with a lot of exposures. In some ways, 2021 is going to be easier than 2020. And in other ways, it's going to be much more traumatic for people. And I would love to come through and say, you know what, we're done with this, and we can all just go back to a happy little life. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry to say, but it's just not going to happen. We have some really major, major hard stuff to deal with in 2021. And I'll share more about that, but I think Richard maybe wants to say something.
Oh, no. I was just agreeing with you. I think there is some stuff to come. I've seen it. I keep getting it from Spirit. I just think, the next, this is, I don't want to say it, but this is biblical, right?
Yeah.
This is the stuff of nightmares. This is the stuff that's been written about for a very long time by people who were connected to Spirit and different beings, and this is happening. And I think that in itself, when Boris Johnson said about psychic shock, I think that's what he was referring to. This is so, and I've got people close to me who are so scared of the outcome of this, of what's next, that they just trapped. They froze. They just like stuck in a point in time.
Yeah, I had that conversation today with my parents, and they were saying, it's not a vaccine that scares me, it's not a control that scares me, it's what's next.
What's next?
And I think that is it. That what is next, and that's the question on everyone's lips, and I think that's almost like unanimous across the board.
Well, and that's why we're here today, right? To kind of take a look, and on one hand, yes, we want to keep an eye on the bigger picture and how things connect into the bigger picture. But then on the other hand, we need to kind of take it in smaller chunks, because if you look at how much has happened even in the last month or even the last week, I mean, we're living in these times where what we experience in a month it used to be what we would experience in like a decade.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this is not easy times. And, when you're bringing down corruption, when you're readjusting things and you're shifting things over, and really we have a lot of change that's coming in 2020. So part of what will help people in a sense is, I kind of like to look at this, what's been happening in 2020 and what's going to happen in 2021, as like a remodel. In 2021, we went through, in 2020, we went through and we kind of leveled the ground out. We tore down the the crumbling walls. We, have gone in and we restructured things. We reset the design in there, and, we got everything ready to go. But you can't really see the improvements because all the walls are still down. But then when you start to bring the design together and you start throwing in the new electricity and you start throwing in the new walls and the new layout for the design, and then it comes through and it's like, oh, wow. So 2021 is that year where the changes are really going to get implemented. All the groundwork has been getting laid in 2020. All the restructuring, whether that has been firing people, corporate heads stepping down, all this restructuring has been going on both sides of the fence, so to say, the corruption and the people trying to clear out the corruption. So now it's time that during 2021, we're going to start to see that actual shift. Whereas a lot of people, I think that's where they felt the frustration in 2020. They keep hearing this has happened, that's happened, but they haven't really been able to see those changes come forth. Well, now we're going to be able to see it. And by the end of this year, it's going to be more in that position like, okay, I can see the design now. I can see where we're headed. Even if I don't have 100% stability, I at least get the direction we're going. So I think that there will be that ease kind of towards the end of the year coming through. But in the meantime, we've still got a lot that's going to come out with Big Pharma. We've still got a lot that's going to come out about technology, human trafficking, sex rings. All of this stuff is still in play, and it's going to be in play. And we're still going to see this competition going on. But again, I think a lot of people, at least they'll be able to see the direction. They'll be able to see the focus of things, which is going to help a lot of people. And I think that's where we're going to see a lot of people turn around on things. They're going to see the crashing down of power structures, particularly those that have sought power and control and have tried to keep us from divine connection. So these different organizations, like some of the ones that Trump pulled out of, if you're talking the UN or the WHO, or, we're going to see their crumbling. And this is part of why the U.S. elections, and I talked about this in my most recent Connecting Codes video that I just released about the elections, is that the network is so massive that it's really bringing down this whole network is almost all connected to the U.S. elections, because what's happening here and what's being exposed here is going to show things all over the world. It's literally got connections all over the world. And so that means that literally the Zuckerbergs and the Gates and the people like this are all connected into it and can all be brought down through this realm. Now, are we going to visually see the arrests on TV? Are we going to visually see it? Actually, no, you probably won't see some of those things because of maybe different deals that are going on, different layers of things that are happening. Plus, you've got the mainstream news sources that just don't want to show it. For example, none of them would show the hearings that have been going on over the election evidence presenting pieces that are there. But, here again, there's so many layers to this, but we're still going to be in 2021 fighting against a lot of these injustices, and we're still going to be bringing forth a lot of awareness. So I encourage people to hang on, and I encourage people, again, to focus on kindness. Whether somebody agrees with your point of view or not, focus on holding kindness for yourself, for other people. You don't have to go into these vicious attacks. When we're standing in truth, we're actually standing in a neutral ground. It's not taking sides. You're standing with divine alliance is what's happening. And we don't have to attack others that see things differently from that space. It's just about holding to that truth in a sense. And so we're going to see a lot of things exposed also in 2021 between all of this shifting and crashing and the changes that are going to be happening. And I really think the changes are going to give some people some hope, but we're going to see where the partnerships are. We're going to see where the real competition is, and we're going to see more exposed around that, which I think is also going to help people connect some dots. We're going to see some of those more intricate networks, the secret connections, the foundations, the organizations are going to be under a lot of exposure. So when you look at these things like the Clinton Organization or the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, or these different movements and things like that, those organizations, and we already saw some of it happening this year with like Planned Parenthood and stuff like that, you're going to start to see exposure on these foundations and these organizations coming up in 2021, and these power structures and the corporate abuse of power of things in there. So, that's kind of one piece of it. I think, and I'm going to throw out a really big nugget here that we have to pay attention to and watch out for. And that is the information, the things that are going to come forth are going to be so intense for people that this year has some undercurrents of a lot of death. And that death is going to come from a lot of angles. And I think it's something that needs to be talked about. I don't want to brush it under the rug. And I don't want it to be scary for people when it starts happening. And that death is going to come from a few different sources. It's going to come from the people who mentally, emotionally, psychologically simply can't handle things. We're going to see a lot of suicide. And that's going to be very tough on people, both, the people that reach that point and the people that know them. We're going to most likely see a lot of death that comes out of where we've allowed the restrictions or where the control still continues. And this is why it becomes so important to speak up. I know a lot of people, they don't want to speak up, but maybe you can find some people that can give you some security or some safety or space to do that in, where you don't feel so alone in doing it, because at some point we have to join together and say we're not going to tolerate this. And there has been movements around in different places where they've at least removed things from being mandatory to non-mandatory. And it's been because of people speaking up. It's been because of people being relentless to stand their ground and say we're not going to take this. And honestly, when you get down to it, these people are going to have to bend because they're realizing people aren't going to buy the story. And so we still have a bit of this going on. We're going to have these aspects of, also people whose health has been broken down in the process of things. We're going to see some death come from that. And that's going to probably create some controversy for people. So we want to be prepared for that, but not focused on it. What I like to say is be prepared for the worst, but focus on the best. And figure you're going to end up somewhere in the middle of that. The reason we don't want to focus on the worst is because then we start to create it. If all we do is focus on evil people in the world with all of these agendas, then we're feeding that energy and we're nourishing it. But if we shift our energy and say, okay, I'm not blind to all of this stuff happening, but I'm going to choose to set a different precedence, and I'm going to stand strong in my kindness. I'm going to stand strong in focusing on being creative and having different outcomes. And creativity is going to be very, very favored in 2021. For better and for worse, in a sense, for better and for worse. And I say that because it's going to open the door to where we're going to see a lot of technology coming out. We're going to see a lot of innovative exploring of things, exploring of new modalities of things. So it's very likely we can see new healing treatments coming out. It's very likely that we can see some of the Tesla technologies coming out in 2021 because of where those code patterns are falling. On the other hand, we could also see a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing, so to say. A lot of people appearing to be one way and not really being that way. So that is something that's going to be of caution. So again, it's this prolonged period of holding people in stress, this prolonged period of keeping people in this turmoil that's breaking them down on multiple levels. And, so that's not going to go unnoticed. One of the biggest battles beyond the just basic good versus evil battle, even too, is literally the battle of the pineal gland. And this is an interesting piece, the battle of the pineal gland, because it connects us to the divine energy. It connects us to being able to hold our soul's energy. And that is where we see the things like the vaccines. They're battling for that, when the pieces that are in the vaccine and the particular structure that it affects in our genes literally shuts off or removes that piece of humanity. So, as we get into these pieces, this is where our battle is, because the battle is over the soul. It's even beyond, in a sense, the good versus evil. It's over the soul energy. And I'm going to take a break and let you guys jump in.
Oh, that's a lot to take in. We've been having some conversations about things like the suicide rate and everything else, and with them closing businesses and with them pushing people and with them isolating people from their loved ones, especially like in the UK, they're taking that to another level. And all the MPs are jumping on that bandwagon because they're just greedy arsewipes. Basically, that's the best. That was me being nice. I think, I can see that. I can quite easily see that coming for next year if this continues, because they're gonna, especially with Christmas coming now. I'm waiting for the energy of Christmas, because I have had quite a spiritual experience in the aspect of Christmas, and I want to see what it feels like, how different it actually feels this Christmas. I'm going to use that as my reference point. And it's kind of a funny thing, you say about the pineal gland, right? And you say I'm trying to cut it off, right? Which, if you really do your research, they've tried, right? They've wanted that out of the equation a long time ago. That was a higher thing, right? If you look at like the flower of life and everything, and what the Joe Public was shown and what the hierarchy was shown, are two different things, and that goes the same for that type of information. And they have tried to shut it off. If you look at like Nazi Germany, they were trying it then. So if you check history, you'll see that they've done this before, and it is. They don't want people being spiritual. They don't want people waking up. They don't want people especially asking questions. But the crazy thing, I think, is everything, and I keep saying this to people, I find myself saying this, everything that creates a divide is against us, is against humanity, right? So anything that creates a divide, it's you, it's us, it's the same with, and they're doing it with the mask. It's the mask wearers, this is non-mask wearers. It's the anti-vaxxers, this, that, this racism, it's this. Everything is designed to have a divide. Everything, the news, if you watch the news, what they've done with terrorism, divide. Culturally, divide. And anything that is within that precipice or is just against humanity. And you've got to see it. If people are watching this and you just think about it, just sit and have a ponder, meditate on it. Just really imagine if we all loved each other, none of this could be possible, right? If the police loved the people they serve, they wouldn't stop them trying to save rights, which they wouldn't need to because it wouldn't happen. Soldiers wouldn't shoot each other because they loved each other, Doctors would take a little bit more care than the money they have over the people they serve, the people they're looking after. We'd all take that little bit of extra care of each other. So anything that is devoid of that is against humanity, is against us progressing, moving forward, creating a world where we don't have the same struggles. People are not sleeping on the streets. People are not neglected. There's not these rings and these, these sickos, and there's not corruption. And it, this is all it's about. It sounds terrifying, and I'm the same. I'm trying to get this across without it being, oh my God, it's the end of the world, right? But the end of something means the beginning of something else, and this is the opportunity. We can still have the police. We can still have the soldiers if you feel like you need it. We can still have all the things. We still have public transport. We still have this, but we can just run that ourselves. We don't need these little groups of these greedy people controlling it all, because they do. They really control it all. I mean, Pfizer, this vaccine is all out of here. If you trace it back, it's got Melinda and Bill written all over it. They've chucked millions at it. This, if you trace it back, this corruption in every aspect of this whole thing with PPE, who bought a big, massive share in the masks, who had a share in this, who had a share in that, and everything. You just got to. It's not waking up, but you just got to look at it. And everything you're looking at out in the world, out of your window, wherever you're sat, if you're looking outside at the world now, everything out there has been designed to keep us isolated and separated, telling us that we have to look, we need alarms on our houses because there's people out there who
I want to interject there, because there's a point there which I don't know whether you were getting to, but it's just you brought up an interesting analogy, and you said about someone looking at the window and you saying everything out there is designed to keep us apart, right? And I think one of the key shifts that we have to make next year, and the next year moving forward, is actually to start looking within ourselves, because the answers have always come from within on this journey. And it's this is the thing, right? That we have been spending this year going, this is what they're going to do, this is what they're going to do next, this is what they're going to do after that, and this is what they're going to do, and they corrupt this, and they are that, and they are that. We don't start thinking about us, what we are going to do. And I think in order to step out of that victim mentality is, that in life you're going to face hardship, in life you're going to face crisis, sadly in life you're going to face death. Nobody wants to face those things. Nobody just goes, I fancy going to a funeral today just for the hell of it. No one wants to do those things, but we do them. And because when we're actually in those situations, it's like, no matter, I've lost countless loved ones, and I still couldn't tell you what I would do if X person died or if Y person died. I don't know. I am not in that situation. I can't even, I would like to think I've learned from the past. And the thing is, this is the thing that we tend to forget, is when we've learned from the past, and a lot of the times, by the time we've realised we've learned from the past and learned the mistake, we've already corrected it and started implementing that correction in each step that we take. The point of this is the fact that we are having to live it. We're having to live this journey. At the end of the day, everything outside is there to divide us, but yet we're still all here. We're still all in as much as variations you can say about politicians having better than X group and X group having better than Y group and whatever, whichever way and whatever label we put on it. Ultimately, we're all sat here on this planet, and we all have to face this together. So if anything out there, the way in which we've seen it before, it's not going to work. It's like you say about these arrests. In order for the arrests to happen, almost humanity needs to get to a point where it's inconsequential whether they happen or not, because we've already started living the new way. It's more of an action, and like you say about it being biblical, it's more of a living through an action rather than sort of understanding intellectually. Does that make sense? I'm sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this makes sense, and this comes back to something I've been saying for a while, which is we have so many people here from the Lemurian and the Atlantean cultures right now. And that is before, when those cultures crashed, when they got destroyed. They didn't really live through things. They kind of just gave in a way. And those souls are back here now. They're living through these times, and we do have to go through the experience. We can't just sit down and give everything away, in a sense. This is a time where we've got to go through the experience. So I'm really glad you brought that up. And you mentioned, Jared, about how we've got to learn from our past if we're going to move forward. I say that all the time in the code journey.
It's the one thing Richard probably says most. Sorry, Rich, but I am sorry I cut you off, dude.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, you're fine. No, it's right. But I was only going to say, it's like with Biden. He was a good example. He was talking about black people in America, and he was quite young, and he was terrible. The things he said were quite just unbelievable. And then all of a sudden, he's a leader. He's trying to become the leader of a country with diversity in such a way like that, and you just can't. I just don't know how anybody could follow. It boggles the mind how you could follow someone that wants divide, that says that person, when like I was saying about the alarms, you put alarms in your house because people are going to burgle you, right? You don't stop and think what the people who are trying to burgle you have gone through, and how they've been cast aside or neglected, or they've been created. And you just, we're all in our little bubble. We're all in our little bubble, and it's just, if you feel like that, if you feel like everywhere you turn, this danger or this problem, or there's kids and there's this and there's that, then there is something fundamentally wrong with the world you live in, and that's it. That's all you need to know. It doesn't matter about what they call us nutters, as conspiracy nutters. We are becoming more truthful than anything you see as an alternative. Anything mainstream nonsense you see in, what we are saying is starting to become reality.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking in the wrong place.
And from the code perspective, there are some very positive codes, which is where I see the hope in this. So even though we have these challenges to face in 2021, we do have this death energy, but remember, death energy is transformation as well. And we are actually going to see a lot of probably paranormal activity coming up in 2021. It's going to be a really big year for paranormal activity, possibly alien activity in there, but basically strange happenings in general. And so much energy is going to open up, that's divine presence energy, as these empires are falling, because we are going to see the fall of empires, and we are going to see again, this corruption continuing to crash. But we have some really divine codes in the presence for 2021. Now, that brings with us certain challenges, but it also brings with it the blessings that a lot of people are going to connect with their soul self during this time. They are going to come in, they're going to get introspective, they're going to look into the deeper layers, they're going to be unfolding more and more in this aspect. And so that is going to be really a positive thing. Also, though, when you have the polarity that's in play that doesn't want to give up its control of things, it's also going to do everything it can to destroy or remove spirit, which we're already seeing in this time, as they're saying you can't worship Christmas, you can't hold Thanksgiving gatherings, you can't, sing praises, you can't dance, you can't. Well, that's not going to work in 2021 because we have really high creativity energy. We have a really strong artist energy. The artist energy that's available at this time, it reminds me of the old musicians that really, came out with with stuff talking about like Vincent van Gogh or things like that. I think you're going to see musicians and artists and people like that, and it's going to hit them, and they're going to say, you're not going to stunt
Do you
my
know, I've
creativity.
been wondering about that because there was a lot of people. I think Billy Bragg brought out like a lockdown version of Streets of London or something. But like, back in the Thatcher times in the 80s, you had like some amazing sort of rebellious folk music. Back in the the time, like the 1950s after the Second World War, when a lot of changes were taking place in America, and especially in like Vietnam and things, you had a brilliant and thriving artistic movement that kind of really inspired people and inspired the coming together of people, and you've not seen that yet. You've not seen that artistic expression, that musical expression. It has literally been devoid. You've actually seen the opposite of that, where people, arguing over like Fairy Tale New York and that sort of thing. So really, we need that now more than ever. We need to start seeing the music coming out, and we're seeing the humorous side of it coming out a little bit, sort of through things like social media, YouTube, that sort of thing. But we need to see a lot more of that. That is something that we are desperately missing, and I think that we're gonna. It's almost like been dreadfully underlooked this year or underplayed.
And it has, because I think people have been in this divide, but the next year opens all of this intuitive energy. It opens all of this, again, spiritual connection energy. And I really believe that that's a gift that's being given to us to see us through this time. I want to acknowledge somebody in the chat area, because they were mentioning, with the deaths, they said with the deaths in the codes, this is not a bad thing. People will have checkout dates when they come to a certain level of awareness. It's their time to ascend. And there is a certain amount of truth to that. We have certain people here that are just, their death, even if it was, say, like older people in a nursing home, for example, is about bringing to light what's happening. It's about making people aware. And they came in and they contracted, and they're contracted to leave at certain points. So, that will be part of it. And, their deaths may be involved in helping with that awakening that we have that's going on. We have to be very, very careful, because what's going to be challenging with the spiritual energy coming in that's going to be available to us is that it doesn't favor communications. It does not favor making big decisions. This is why a lot of the big decisions had to already get made in 2020, so that it's more than about implementing in 2021. And we have to be very careful, because there's a fine line between not procrastinating and operating in urgency. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we're going to really need to pay attention to. We can't make decisions or do things because we're feeling that pressure, because we're feeling out of time, because we're rushed into it. But at the same time, we don't want to just put it off until whenever. We need to act on things promptly. So what I suggest for people is that they take the time to really sit and observe the layers of things, really look at things deeply, and then move forward. But when they're making decisions, make it more from an intuitive space. Make it more from a space of, how does it connect with divine principles? How in line is it with divine principles or divine laws? And use that as a guideline, as opposed to trying to do it from the mental side, because the mental, logical mind is not going to be functioning well. And this also shows that things are going to get misspoken in 2021. And your media and your corruption, they're going to be ready to jump on that and to spin it and to turn it around. And so we're really going to have to be a little bit forgiving in this year. we're going to have to ask the questions to say, is this what you mean? This is what I heard. We're going to have to do a lot of clarifying. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because that then is getting us into the truth. That's getting things adjusted and corrected and ready to be in balance and ready to be into a stronger interaction where things can be created from that. But yeah, this creative energy, the artist energy, you know, so many of them get sucked into the globalist area because it sounds so good. The talk is so good on it. But, you know, as we know, and we've done the research on it, it's really not such a great thing. And, you know, that's going to be a key place with things. As far as the deaths, I would say most of the deaths that we're going to be seeing are going to be in the second half of the year, and the bulk of that is going to be happening July through October time frame. So again, we're going to see some clamping down on things again as people are unfolding layers. You're just simply going to have some people that it's going to be too much. People are going to want to escape, and that's going to bring a rise in addictions. That's going to bring a rise in suicides. That's going to be bringing, you know, people with control issues. It's going to probably bring in a rise in abuse, in home-based abuse, these types of things. But when we get down to it, shift is going to be inevitable. We're not going to be able to avoid shift. What we want to do is to consider what direction we're going to move things in. We, the people, what direction are we going to move things in? You can have all of this chaos going on in the world. Are you going to allow yourself to be ruled by that chaos? Or are you going to still find your own peace of mind? And this is something you could go back to a lot of points in history, whether it's Hitler's time or other people's times, and you can go back and see where there are people that, regardless of what they saw going on, they chose to center into that peace. So I think that is definitely an aspect that's going on. It's such an incredible time that we're living in, and if we start to see how incredible what we're living through is instead of how crappy it is, then we can really harness the power of what this time has to offer. We can really harness the energy that is available to us and the opportunities that are available to us in that. And I think that's the key, is learning to see where the beauty is, learning to see the magnificence of what's happening, even when we don't necessarily like what's happening, or it doesn't necessarily feel good anyways to our human self.
Wow.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that, and I'm with you on. I'm trying. I want to tell people that this is an opportunity, right? And I've looked at quite a few things in my life, and I've come to the conclusion that this battle has to happen for a new world to begin, right? And yeah. I believe with all my faith that we win. The meek shall inherit the earth. I believe it, right? I believe it's written in all the texts it's in. We win the day. Good overcomes evil. We make a new world, and we never allow any of this nonsense to happen again. Right? But I'm struggling, I think, with the people around me who are fearful. I think that's what I'm struggling with. I can't. You know, I can say to someone, I said it the other day on the show, I said, it's like them young boys in World War II and World War I who were in the trenches, and they knew they had to climb up that ladder, and they knew they weren't coming back. They knew everybody they loved and they made friendships with went over the top of that little mound. They never come back. Now, that's the decision we've got to, we are in that position, and we don't know what's on the other side of that trench. And it's kind of, without saying it, it's hard not to say it. Do you know what I mean? It's hard not to say that we've got to go over that we've got to go over the top. We've got to go up that ladder. We've got to see what's there, because it's the right thing to do. You know, it's the right thing to do for the future, for our children, for the people we care about, for the future, to look back and say, thank you for not succumbing to that nonsense. Thank you for having the courage to go over there. I don't have to face that now in my life. I can sit there and appreciate the sunrise and appreciate my life and look at the people I love, and I'm grateful. And that is, but you can't say that without having a little bit of fear in it, because that gives you fear stepping up that ladder. And I think, you know, I believe it, and I'm struggling to get that across without saying, to go through that, it's going to be a bit stressful.
You know, got to go through the fire.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I keep telling people they got to go through the fire, and I know they're getting fearful of it. And it's, you know, but it is a light. There is hope and love on the other side of that fire, and we can do it. We can't stay.
And those of you that are awake, that are paying attention to what's going on, that really get all of this, I want to throw a little tidbit out, because a similar thing came up in my last study session on the November 30th. And that is, those people who can't see, for example, beyond the mainstream media sources or beyond the trauma, the drama, they're all wrapped up into it, overly heavy. We need to take the time to have just some genuine connection with them, because I'm hearing a lot of people saying, I'm on one side, my spouse is on another side, things like this. And it's very, very hard for them, and they love each other and they want to have their relationship. But it's like this, things that are happening in the world have been overpowering their relationship. 2021 in particular, it favors us disconnecting. We need to get out and enjoy things while we can. We need to get out and take that walk. We need to go hike in nature. We need to be around nature itself, real nature, not, you know, just man-created things, but work with whatever you can get where you are. We need time to sit and watch the sunrise or watch the sunset. And these sound like really basic things, but part of it is because we need to disconnect. We need to disconnect from the technology for a while. We need to step away from the internet. We need to step away from the input for a while, and to just sit and be. And I think if we can just literally and proverbially take somebody's hand and say, you know what, we're going to have a no world events hour or two out of our day, and we're just going to sit here and we're just going to enjoy the sunrise, and we're just going to see how many magnificent things that are here. Because if we don't do this, at some point we'll look back and say, man, I really regret that I didn't take advantage of seeing that sunrise, or telling somebody that I cared about them. And we need to bring that focus back to connecting with one another. Set the rest of it aside, say, okay, if we're going to have our differences here, we can come back to them or whatever at another point. But right now we need to focus on the connection. Right now we need to have time that does not involve this. And that is part of creating the balance. That is part of what's going to help us keep our sanity, is in taking these moments to just really have a beautiful experience in life, and taking the breaks. Those are going to be critical to getting through things. And the people that can do this, the people who have so-called been called the crazy conspiracy theorist, or that have been trying to share the truth, that have been trying to do it, they're going to be stepping up in so many ways, and they're going to become major influencers, whether they have 12 people around them or whether they have 12,000 or 12 million people around them. They will become a major influencer, because it will be how they're living their life. It will be about their ability to know that we're going to get through things, to know that there is something better on the other side of this, to realize that the transformation is incredible, no matter how scary it is. And so these influences, these major influencers are going to start stepping up in 2021. We're going to see some people emerge. And again, it's, it's really about we're having an impact no matter how large or how big our circle of people is in our life. And I think that that's important to keep in mind. And those that have really strong followings of people, we're going to see those are going to be the ones that are going to be more active and rebelling. Whether you want to call that the white hats or you want to call that some starseed group or whatever, whatever it is that has a much larger following, they're going to be the ones that are going to be a little more proactive in bringing things down, in fighting the restrictions and helping to bring in peace. But each one of us is doing our piece of things. Each one of us is focusing on that. Mine is bringing out information. Mine is helping people understand what's going on. Mine is sharing with them that, yes, there's crap to go through, but there's also a lot of blessings that are going to come out of all of that. So, I think that these are kind of some key pieces and things, and we're there to make sure that people are taking the breaks and go, come on, let's go step away. Let's just take a walk and let's just look at the flower. Let's just look at the river or whatever it is. And let's, have a little bit of just focusing on something else and the spirit time. So I think really your coaches might get really busy this year in 2021. Your sound healers are probably going to get really busy because people are going to be seeking out those places that they can go and meditate, where they can be still, where they can find the calmness, where they can find the peace. And it's up to us to realize, is this a person that I can go into full-on conversation about things with? Or is this a person that I need to just sit and have time with and not talk about any of it, but just give them time to be?
I like that. And that's exactly brings back around to what I said at the beginning, with the video that we put out a couple of weeks ago. It blew up like a balloon, didn't it, Rich? It was like about 1,000 or so views. And I know that's still, to compare to other channels, that's not a great deal, but it made me think about. It inspired people to share their stories. It inspired people to share their experiences. It inspired people to contact us. And I thought, wow, that video just has a bit of weight. It has value to someone. And, you've just got to keep your own head and your own convictions about you. That it doesn't matter whether you're talking to one person or 1,000 people. The message should always remain the same, which is live life in love, empathy, kindness and compassion. And that's been the crux of my story. This last few weeks have been a lot about reflecting on the path and the journey that's got us to. Me and you, Rich, have talked about it. I've had conversations with others about it on the various journeys that I've been on, and I wouldn't be surprised, Dan, if you have had conversations about it. I say that because you mentioned about certain things being brought up earlier, and I think it's a lot of that at the moment. There's a lot of reflecting of where we've come from. This is, and it kind of feels to me that 2020 is an ending of sorts. And we are now moving into the beginning. We're ending one chapter and we are now embarking upon another chapter in this 5-year story that we all seem to be living. So Planet Earth Season 2, guys, is coming in 2021. We are getting a little bit shorter on time. Well, how much more? Was there anything else you wanted to go through, Anne, before we ended the show?
I think with this is that, like you say, we're kind of ending one chapter right now. We're getting ready to start another chapter. I think 2021 is going to be a big purification phase. It's gonna be clearing out a lot of things, and that's going to be super powerful. one thing that I will mention about 2021 that people might want to be aware of, so that maybe they're not quite as caught off guard, is that we're going to see a lot of strong rise and fall of power, and it's likely to happen really fast, really suddenly, and really unexpectedly. So, you could just, it could seem like a world leader is going along fine one day, and 2 days later they're dying in the hospital. Or, it can be weird things that are going to come up. And so these sudden shifts, very sudden, very unexpected. So I encourage people to try not to get locked into too many structures if you don't have to be. Try to leave your schedule open. Try to leave room for handling the unexpected. We definitely want to do some stocking up going into summer, because I think we do have that rough period of months in there. And, if you have any possibility to do like a 6-month stock up on food prior to getting into June, so that you're ready by the middle of June, be ready for at least 3, 4 to 6 months of stocking up and things. So pace yourself out. Think about, can I stock things up in little pieces between now and then? I think that's going to be an important thing. Also, we have a lot of things that are probably going to be happening with natural disasters and emergency situations that are connected to weather. And they won't necessarily be like HARP related or activated or controlled weather patterns. They are Mother Nature balancing in 2021. Basically a lot of this is we are going to be forced to deal with things one way or another in 2021. And there's, you might want to escape them, but escaping them isn't the answer. This is about purifying. You better get out that 40-foot sage, because, it's a big purification year. And, we're going to have to go through the fire to get to the transformation, which is going to be really amazing. I do see a lot of success and victory energy coming through. I do see a lot of advancements, and we'll be able to see, who's going to do what needs to be done. And this is going to become a focus. People are going to start letting go. They're going to start losing their interest in these rich celebrities and these extravagant lifestyles, especially those that feel the pressure or the tension or the restrictions. And it's going to be getting down to more about what needs to be done, what we need to take care of, instead of just what has seemed nice. And I think more people are going to let it go by will too, as opposed to force, because they're going to be looking at the truth of things coming up going, you know what, I don't want anything to do with that. And it's like they're going to start really actually getting disgusted by a lot of the heavy, extravagant materialism of things. So that's going to we're going to see some of that come down, which is interesting, because if we look at that in the terms of world events, that tells me a lot of your elite Hollywood industry that's been supporting the corruption is going to crash. We're going to see a huge, probably shifting going on in that industry. Got a lot of globalist structures that are going to be collapsing in 2021. That's one of the areas we can see success and victory coming about, and a lot of people and situations being brought to justice. So here again, I think in some ways, as challenging as it is to look at it all, I think some people will find peace in that, because they're going to see and feel, well, wow, justice is actually being served. Something's actually being done about this. It's not just that it exists, but there's actually something being done about it. And what we do this year, the decisions we make this year are important, even though we need to make them from a more maybe esoteric perspective. But every choice that we make this year is laying the foundations for what we're going to create, or will be the foundations for our future. So we want to think about that very carefully. Do we want a future that is full of rioting? Do we want a future that is full of restrictions? Or do we want a future that is free for us to choose things. Do we want a future that is based in kindness to one another, that is based in interacting soul to soul with one another? And success is going to originate out of wise choices. We need to consider advancement is inevitable, change is inevitable, but how can we do that in safe and environmentally favorable ways without turning over all of our rights or without handing over control to those that are already control hungry? There are still going to be some uprisings, some rebellions over the restrictions and the controls and things. So again, kind of a mixed piece. But I think our hardest point of the year, it's got both stagnation energy to it and also restriction energy, and that's going to be June through about mid-October. And again, I think that's where we could see these little waves of things that the frustrations might build up in that time. I see a lot of financial challenges, physical challenges. So there could be something happening in regards to health at that time. And there could be something happening in regards to financial shifts in the world. So we're already seeing things where the UN is claiming that they're out of funds for certain things. So, and that's all attached to the World Bank and Central Bank. So people should not be afraid if they start to see some financial collapses. Again, it's part of the purification. It's part of the transformation that we're under, and it needs to happen because it's about closing down a system that really doesn't serve us as humanity and opening up new systems that do serve us in humanity.
Wow. It's going to be an interesting year.
Get lots of popcorn. Put your helmet on.
I've got mine. I'm ready. I got my crystal up my nose, right? Look, I'm ready. I got my stage 2B, right? My singing bowl. I got rose tinted glasses. I have got a vial of holy water, but I don't think YouTube's ready for that yet. Where I put that? So yeah, I am zen. I am. Nothing's going to affect me.
Richard's ready for 2021.
Good.
Well, so you're going to be coming back on the show on the 6th of January, I believe.
Yes. Yes. Excited to do that.
And you're going to take us through the first 3 or 4 months of 2021.
Yeah, I think 3 months will be plenty to look at.
Well, yeah, and we obviously get what we've discussed is we're going to keep the first week of the month, or at least a slot of the Now Debate for the first week of the month open for you to come on the show, Anne, because I know a lot of the people who watch this channel really do enjoy these talks that you give. And we can keep doing the month-by-month breakdowns like we've been doing. So, yeah, I think January, the first Wednesday in January would be absolutely brilliant to have you back on again and kickstart us into the new year. Guys, we do have, we're probably going to make a video a little bit later on, but we do have some exciting announcements for things that are going to be happening in the coming weeks. Was there anything further you wanted to go into, Anne, before we come to the end of today's show?
I think those are kind of the main themes and the main points in the year, and it's going to be interesting to see what surfaces. I mean, of course, the codes they're not going to tell you so and so is going to do this at a certain time.
That's what I like about them.
Date.
That's what I like about them.
It's open to people, and I just love how they flow with people. Each person has their own unique interaction with them, even though we have shared things that are happening in the world. What I do find is they give us the heads up so that we can work with foresight, and that's really important. I will show the book again, which is the 2021 book. And you can go on my website, compassioncodes.com. Go to the goods tab, select the code journey. You'll find it on there, and that has the direct links to get you right to the pages for the type of form that you want to purchase, whether you want the paperback, which is really a good idea because it's a really super thick book, by the way. It's about 700 pages or so. It's a thick book, and but some people like the ebook versions. You can do that. Again, you can check out the 2020 version for free on the ebook version at Smashwords. And the links, again, they're all on that one page for the code journey on my website. So it makes it nice and easy to get to them. And, it's a powerful tool. You'll love working with it, no matter where you're at on your journey. If you just kind of want some love and kindness in your life, or if you are real into what's happening into the world and real up on the events of the world and the undercurrents of everything that's happening, you're going to be able to look at it and say, oh, okay, we're probably in for some riots at this time, or okay, I can see where this is coming up. I've got a heads up of what I need to be doing for myself. And I think that's the big key, is it's about foresight. It's not about pinpointing specific players, dates, and times as much as it is about realizing the interactions and the energies at play so that you can maximize what they have to offer.
I agree with that, and for any of you guys, the link to that is in the description below this video. Just go scroll down past Anne's bio, and there are some links down there to and if you check out the last video that we did, which is the predictions for November, there is some links in there, which we'll be posting underneath this video when it's finished processing by YouTube after we've going live. Richard, do you need? I don't know if we're ready to make announcements for what's coming up in the coming weeks. Are we ready to make some of those announcements yet, or do we still have a few jiggly pokery bits to go through?
Yeah, we still have. I think we have a few jiggly pokery bits yet. I think we will make the announcements of what's next. We're going to be doing, obviously, trying to do a bit of spiritual awareness, and giving people a bit of guidance on different things to look out for and how it feels. That's coming up. But for the rest, I think we can, we when we know, when it's in stone, I think then we can tell people.
Right, okay. I know we have some big guests coming up in the coming weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've got some absolutely massive guests coming up in the next couple of weeks. Next week, we have a gentleman called Garrick King, who has specialised in looking at ITC in the sense of reversed speech. He has also had possible contact with the Council of 12, and he has been doing water and video ITC, and he has got some spectacular paranormal evidence to show us. So that's going to be next week's Now Debate. And on Saturday, this Saturday is going to be the first. It's going to be a double video feature that happens every Saturday night, hopefully. I know for the next 2 Saturdays we're definitely going to be doing it. We're going to try and make it a regular Saturday feature. We're going to call it Spiritual Saturday. So the 2 videos are going to be called Spiritual Saturday. One's going to be my video, one's going to be Richard's, and we're going to talk about our different perspectives of spiritual development. So any of you guys interested in taking this journey for yourselves, or want to know what to do, or how to start, how to get started, some practical tips and that sort of stuff, Richard is going to be focusing a lot on that sort of side of things. I'm going to be focusing a little bit more on the mindset and the things that the things that we don't ask ourselves on this journey. It's going to be very, very interesting, and I hope that it's going to be something you guys are going to enjoy. We have got lots more things coming up in the coming weeks, but we're looking at possibly having enough guests now to go through until the end of January. We've got to make sure all the I's and the T's and stuff are dotted and crossed, but we're going to have some very major announcements for you guys shortly. and we're going to be having some announcements, hopefully going into the new year, about the website and availability of our content on other platforms as well. So you can follow us on different platforms. So thank you very much, guys. Any final words?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. I think we've said it all. I think I think, the foilat says it all. I think. bring on 20.
Just my thing to people is, just remember, even in those bumpy spots, even in the challenging times, we're going to get through it. Don't let it make you just give up on everything, I think is the key. And just, if you feel the intensity too much, too hard, too strong, just take time out for soul connection, because that's really going to be the big thing. And I noticed somebody had asked in the chat really quick that did last year's book See the Pandemic Coming. It's not that it specifically saw it as a pandemic, but it did see the restrictions. It did see the shutdowns. It did see confinement, or aspects of being confined or feeling restricted in there. And so it did pinpoint on the aspects that go with a pandemic.
Excellent. Yes. And that's what's basically guided us through the last couple of months with these different sessions that we've done. So thank you guys for joining us tonight. Please, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. It does help us. If you are catching us for the first time, welcome. Thank you to those who have subscribed to the channel and have been watching the videos and commenting on the videos and interacting with it. I hope what we've put out on this channel does bring you some benefit. Thank you to everyone who's been sharing their information with us, and just thank you all for being a part of this journey with us. Honestly, you've humbled us this year, I think, and I just want to say love to you all, and see you all soon.
Love and light, para peeps.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Anne.